in your mind. But originally, dowry did not originate from greed. Dowry was a symbol of love and affection. In Indian customs, the daughter never got any share in her father's property. So at the time of marriage, out of love and affection, the woman's brother, sister, father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, uncles, aunties, and all the relatives got together and gave her expensive gifts out of a lot of love and affection, so that whenever she faces any problem after her marriage, she could use these gifts and somehow overcome those problems. There was so much of love and affection in the word dowry. But the sad fact is that as per customs, these gifts or the dowry was supposed to be handed over to the husband or the husband's parents or the in-laws. Now the in-laws became irresponsible over a period of time and they started misusing the dowry. Actually speaking, the dowry was supposed to be handed over back to the lady, but they did not do that. They instead spent it, sold it, used it as a security to raise a loan, or sometimes even lent it to a relative down the line. And finally, the lady never got any benefit of the dowry. Now, as these husband and in-laws became more and more greedy, they started harassing the daughter-in-law or the girl who got married and bought the dowry. They harassed her more and more so that she would go to her parents and ask them more and more dowry. The parents thought, okay, by giving this much more dowry or by spending this much more dowry, she could lead a peaceful and a happy life in her in-laws' place. And so they fulfilled the demands. And slowly this became a habit. And some people down the line got even more greedy. Some husbands got even more greedy. They finally murdered this innocent girl so that they could get married to another lady and again get dowry. Now the murder was so well planned that the murder would look more like an accident or a suicide. To save such innocent victims, to save such innocent women, Dowry Prohibition Act was enacted. And before Dowry Prohibition Act in 1956, another law was enacted under which women got a right in their father's property. So the government enacted two legislations simultaneously to prohibit dowry or to stop the bad effects of dowry. The first one was the Hindu Succession Act in 1956, which gave the daughter a right in her father's property, and then came the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961 to save the women from the bad effects of dowry. Now almost 40 years or 50 years are over since these two laws are enacted, but it is still very sad that most of the women in our country do not know the beneficial provisions of this Dowry Prohibition Act. Section 2 defines dowry. In this act, dowry has been given a very wide definition. Dowry means any valuable security given or agreed to be given directly or indirectly by one party to the marriage to the other party, or by the parents of either party to the marriage to any party in the marriage. It could be given before marriage, after marriage, or during marriage, but it should be in connection with the marriage. It does not include mahar or dower, which is covered under the Muslim personal law. Now there is one more thing which is not included under dowry. This may sound a little unpractical, but this is how the law is written. It says that after the marriage, whenever time permits, as soon as possible, the husband and wife have to sit together and prepare two lists. The wife's list and the husband's list. Each person will enter all the articles, will enter all the assets in that list. Which assets will be entered in that list? All the assets which are in the custody of that party will be entered in the list. So in the wife's list, all the assets which are in the custody of the wife will be entered in the wife's list, and similarly the husband will also prepare his list. Both the parties will sign this list. This list will contain details of all the valuable dowry or present received during the marriage, the approximate value of the present, and the name of the person giving the present, and both the husband and wife will sign this list. Then the husband will keep his list safely and the wife will keep her list safely. Okay, what is the importance of this list? Once the wife prepares this list, all the properties that is listed in this list is presumed to be under the custody of the wife. So, in case if this property is missing, stolen or destroyed, she cannot hold anyone responsible. Or for anything missing from this list or anything lost from this list, the wife cannot invoke Dowry Prohibition Act. That is the importance of this list. So the wife has to be extremely careful while preparing this list, and she has to ensure that all the properties which are entered into this list or all the dowry items which are entered into this list, she takes it into her custody. Okay, penalty for giving or taking dowry. This law has been made a little more wide and little less meaningful according to me. But anyway, any person giving or taking dowry shall be punishable for a term as long as 5 years imprisonment and a fine which is at least 15,000 or the amount of the value of dowry. So if 10 lakhs dowry is demanded, then the fine is 10 lakhs. This is really a powerful law. But the flip side is both the person giving the dowry or taking the dowry, both the person giving or taking the dowry can get victimized under this powerful section. Now, penalty for demanding dowry. This is the extra punishment for the husband and his mother and father for demanding dowry. If any person demands directly or indirectly from the parents or other relatives, he shall be punishable for a term which is at least 6 months but which could extend to 2 years and a fine which is at least 10,000 rupees. Okay, now any advertisement for dowry is banned. That is, a person cannot offer dowry or demand dowry through any advertisements or offer any discounts regarding his dowry in any advertisement. If any person does that, he shall be punished for a term for at least 6 months, or which could go to as long as 5 years, and a fine which could be as high as 15,000 rupees. Any agreement for giving or taking dowry is void. So even if you have entered into any agreement for giving or taking dowry, it cannot be legally enforced. Your liability under those agreements cannot be legally enforced. You can simply avoid it. You can avoid it legally. Now coming to section 6, this is the most powerful or the most beneficial section in this law. This simply says that all the dowry which has been received has to be transferred back to the lady. When it has to be transferred? If the dowry was given before marriage or during marriage, within 3 months after marriage it has to be transferred back to the lady. Within 3 months after marriage, all the dowry has to be transferred back to the lady. It has to be given into the custody of the lady. In case the woman is a minor, then after she becomes 18 years, within 3 months, that is, the day she becomes 18 years, 3 months, before that all the dowry should be transferred to the woman. What happens to the person who fails to transfer? If any person fails to return back the dowry to the lady, he will be punished for 6 months, which could go to as long as 2 years, and a fine which could be minimum 5,000 rupees, but as high as 10,000 rupees will be imposed on him. This is not all. He faces one more punishment. Apart from this fine, the court will also impose a fine which is equal to the value of the dowry. So say if that guy has misappropriated 10 lakhs worth of dowry, that court will impose 10 lakhs of fine on him, and that fine will be collected as though it is imposed by that court. And this means that this recovery provision is very strong and gives lot of power to the court to force that person to deposit back the dowry or to return the dowry back to the woman. Now what happens if the woman dies before she gets back the dowry? In case the woman dies before she gets back the dowry, then that dowry has to be given to the heirs of the woman or her children. Now there are some special cases where a woman dies before 7 years of her marriage. then what happens to this dowry and if she has no children? I mean, if a woman dies within 7 years of her marriage and she has no children, what happens to the dowry? That dowry reverts back to her parents. There's a very lovely law which has been enacted. So any girl which has been tortured and killed in her in-law's place within 7 years of her marriage and she has no children, apart from the other criminal laws of murder coming into force, the entire dowry of the lady will revert back to the parents. Now, we have such beautiful laws, but these laws become meaningless unless the proof of giving dowry is not maintained by the lady or her parents. So for all these laws to be effective, you have to have proof of what dowry has been given to the boy's side or to the husband and his relatives, without which such powerful provisions cannot be enforced in your favor. Okay, now coming to the procedure to be followed by the lady if she wants to get back her dowry. Okay, she could simply file a police complaint in the police station and submit all the photocopies of the documents she has and wait for the police to act. A week later, if the police does not act, she could send the same complaint by registered post along with all the photocopies of all the evidences she has. There's one more beautiful thing which I would like to tell you all, that with mobile phones coming in every hand, it is very easy to record evidences. You can simply set the record button to record all the conversations and actually record and actually make the other person speak out what all dowry he has received, directly or indirectly. And I'm very happy that some of my clients that they were really smart women who actually managed to record the 80% of the dowry which their parents had given to their husbands. Okay, the complaint could be filed by the lady or her relative or any recognized welfare or institution or organization. The judge is bound by this law to take cognizance of this dowry offense and immediately start the proceedings. In order to force the judge or to make the judge act fast, all the letters which I have written in red, all the sentences which are marked in red in this video would be read out loudly in front of the judge. And very politely you could force the judge, very politely you could assert the judge to pass orders in your favor. Okay. These offences are treated as non-bailable and non-compoundable. That is, the people who get accused in these offences, it will not be easy for them to get a bail if the evidences are strong, and these offences cannot be compromised. Then the burden of proof in these offences is on the accused. That is, the burden of proof is on the husband and his mother and father or whoever are involved in these offences. They have to do the running around to prove themselves innocent. The state government has also appointed dowry prohibition officers and empowered them as much as a police inspector to investigate into dowry cases. The lady has to find out the addresses of these dowry prohibition officers and similarly file a complaint with them and give all the photocopies of all the evidences or hand over all the photocopies of all the evidences to these dowry prohibition officers. And if they do not act, say within a week or something, by registered post, send them a copy by registered post. Now, in such a short time, I have been able to tell you all the beneficial provisions of the Dowry Prohibition Act.